Good morning, Cynthia and Greg. Those astronauts have been on a 16-day odyssey that, as you mentioned, is set to come to an end a little more than an hour and 15 minutes from now. In fact, that is the landing clock right there. Actually, we've just passed that point, about 1 hour, 14 minutes and counting. You know, we want to bring up the landing route for you so you can take a look at how the orbiter is going to glide in across central Florida. It's actually coming in from west to east. It will be coming in over the Tampa area, passing over Orlando, and then over Titusville before touching down here at the Kennedy Space Center. Of course, all of that relies on Mother Nature to cooperate. And joining me right now with the latest on the situation with the weather is Kennedy Space Center's very own weather expert, if you will, John Madura. John, what are things looking like right now?
The main concern is a shower or two that are just off to the east, about 15 miles. That's within the 30-mile limit that they don't like to have showers, so they're evaluating it now. The aircraft is out there. However, they're optimistic that the showers will continue to move away from the Kennedy Space Center.
Now, at one point, you were actually concerned about some morning fog. That doesn't seem to have materialized.
That's right. We have just enough air movement, and we had a little bit of clouds, and that put a blanket over us and kept our temperature from falling too low. So fog is not the concern now, just that shower that's offshore. I want to make sure nothing forms closer to the landing facility.
And you say we should know for sure whether or not they're going to do the deorbit burn in a couple of minutes.
Just in a couple of minutes. They're evaluating it right now. The aircraft is investigating those clouds and showers right now.
Thank you very much, John. We'll be talking to John a little bit later. Of course, once they do that maneuver, the deorbit burn, they are more or less committing themselves to bringing Columbia down during that first landing opportunity. There are two of them this morning, but the first one is at 6:47 a.m. We, of course, will be providing live team coverage. You can tune in right here on Channel 9 for the latest. Reporting live at the Kennedy Space Center, Rucks Russell, Channel 9 Eyewitness News.
Thank you, Rucks.
45 minutes and counting. That's counting down to landing time. Just beyond that, you can see some odd-looking vehicles back there, some trucks and what have you. Those are the landing crews, the post-landing crews. They've just had a strategy session of sorts to discuss how they're going to go about securing the orbiter once she touches down here on runway 33. Let's bring you a picture of Mission Control right now, and you can see that they're in Houston. They are monitoring the situation on Columbia very closely. She has just completed a deorbit burn, is now in the atmospheric re-entry portion of the operation. Of course, during that phase, temperatures on board Columbia will soar on the orbiter itself up to about 2,800 degrees on those protective tiles which cover the belly of the spacecraft. Right now, landing is set for 6:47 this morning here at the Kennedy Space Center. Of course, we are standing by to bring you live pictures and live updates throughout the morning on the progress of Columbia. Of course, enthusiasm here is somewhat tempered by developments on board the Russian space station Mir. A power loss there, full power loss after a cable was inadvertently disconnected. And now all three of the astronauts, including American astronaut Mike Foale, are in the Soyuz capsule. NASA tells me that they are not in any danger, but they are monitoring that situation as well. They'll be having a news conference later this morning to discuss it. And you can say they're a little disappointed because this has been such a banner day for them, and they were hoping to have nothing but good news with the Columbia landing, but obviously the Mir situation has changed all of that. Stay tuned to Channel 9 for the latest on both developing stories. For now, we're live at the Kennedy Space Center. Rucks Russell, Channel 9 Eyewitness News.
Several experiments, and our Channel 9's Rucks Russell is live at Kennedy Space Center to bring us the very latest on this. Good morning, Rucks.
Good morning, Cynthia. 16 days in orbit indeed for those astronauts. A very successful reflight mission that is about to come to an end. This mission actually began back on July 1st. In fact, some of you may have seen the launch right here on Channel 9, the liftoff, flawless of Columbia. Astronauts spent 16 days in orbit and did microgravity experiments with fire and protein crystals. Those experiments will have direct applications here on Earth. Let's bring up the landing map for you one more time and show you how Columbia will glide in across the state, hitting the Tampa area first and passing directly over Orlando and finally here in Brevard County. Some of you may see something streaking through the sky. You'll certainly hear those sonic booms in Orlando and here in Brevard County. Again, the landing coming up in just a few short minutes, 6:47 a.m. Stay tuned for the live update. Reporting live here at the Kennedy Space Center, Rucks Russell, Channel 9 Eyewitness News.
Thank you, Rucks. Some central with those results. Channel 9's Rucks Russell joins us live with the latest from the Kennedy Space Center. How you doing, Rucks?
Hey, Rucks.
I'm doing pretty well out here. I tell you, we're pretty excited about this. Take a look around me. The weather is just gorgeous. They had a few concerns earlier today, but those concerns were mainly about some storms developing off the coast. They did not pose a problem, as it turned out, so they gave the go for the re-entry burn, and that's exactly what they did. Take a look back there. That's runway 33. That is where the orbiter will be touching down from left to right, or actually from right to left, from north to south. It's going to be touching down over here just a few minutes from now. In fact, the countdown clock to landing right there in the foreground now at T-minus 5 minutes and 50 seconds or so. Pretty soon you're going to be hearing some sonic booms over the Orlando area. NASA Select now has a picture of the orbiter, we believe. We think they've acquired a shot of the orbiter as she glides in there. That shot's being taken from one of the chase planes that's following the orbiter as she makes her entry in across the state, across Central Florida, passing directly over the Orlando area, and then passing eventually over Titusville, out over the ocean, and then back around to the landing strip here at the Kennedy Space Center. We also want to tell you a little bit about this mission. This has been an historic mission from the get-go. These astronauts were on a reflight. This reflight got underway back on July 1st, and it's the first reflight of its kind because it's the entire same crew that first flew together back in April. That mission, of course, was cut short due to a failure on one of the APU units, and they had to come home some 3 days into that mission. A big disappointment for the 7 astronauts on board because they did not get the chance to finish all of the experiments that they had hoped to complete. Well, they tried again. If at first you don't succeed, try again. NASA believes that philosophy. They live by it. They launched on July 1st, and it was a successful launch, and they were in space for 16 days of microgravity research for the 7 astronauts aboard. They conducted numerous experiments with fires and some other experiments with protein crystals. NASA believes that these experiments will yield results that can be applied right here on Earth. So this is just the kind of day that NASA has been hoping for. They had good weather on launch, and they have good weather for the landing opportunity. Boy, we just booms right overhead over the Kennedy Space Center. So the shuttle is indeed on her way in. Right now, you can see her gliding in. The shuttle is basically being controlled by the main computers at this point. In fact, it's all been computer controlled since entry into the atmosphere. They've been in a procedure where the shuttle basically glides back, makes bank maneuvers left and right. All of those maneuvers are designed to place her on the proper glide scope so that she can come here and make a perfect touchdown at the Kennedy Space Center. It's actually called the TAME section of the entry phase. That's Terminal Area Energy Management, and that's where they're also conserving energy as well as making these various maneuvers to try and bring the shuttle in on the proper path. Remember, folks, she is a glider, and as such, she does not have engine power at this point, so she only really has one opportunity to touch down here at the Kennedy Space Center, one chance to make a perfect touchdown. They cannot, of course, fly around and try again, so it's very important that everything is precisely controlled, and the computers figure everything out just so that the shuttle makes a touchdown on the runway. In fact, they have 3 APU units working on board now. Shuttle needs 2 APUs to make a safe landing, but all 3 of these have been functioning well throughout this mission. The APUs have been a sore spot for shuttle missions in the past. We already mentioned that this is a reflight, and an APU had failed on that mission, but on other missions in the past, they've had problems with the APU units. No such problems this time around, no such technical problems at all. And that meant the astronauts had full time to devote all of their energy to those experiments on board the Columbia. Right now you can see a real pretty picture of the orbiter just coming in nicely. I'm going to listen in a little bit to NASA Select.
Well, the crew can now see the runway through the heads-up display now, barely visible behind the X that you see at the top.
Commander Jim
Commander
Halsell. Commander Jim Halsell at the controls. He's backed up, of course, by pilot Susan Still. She is only the second female to pilot the space shuttle.
That is a fairly dramatic angle of attack as Columbia makes its final approach, 3,000 feet in altitude now.
And there you have Columbia in the center of your screen coming in here at the Kennedy Space Center. They've slowed down dramatically from better than 16,000 miles per hour in space to about 215 miles per hour when they finally touch down here at the Space Center. You can see how it's lined up there. That's a really unique sight there from the commander's point of view. And Commander Jim Halsell will manually bring the shuttle in.
He is on his 1.5-degree approach as they cross the threshold of runway 33 at the Kennedy Space Center now at 15 feet at 220 knots.
Lined up perfectly there.
And main gear touchdown.
Pilot Susan Stills pushed to 2 buttons which deploy the drag chute.
Susan Still deployed the drag chute.
Columbia's rolling out on runway 33 at the Kennedy Space Center, completing 251
And a perfect touchdown here at the Kennedy Space Center. A perfect end to what NASA believes has been a perfect mission for 7 shuttle astronauts. 7 astronauts spent 16 days in space. They are now back on the ground here at the Kennedy Space Center. Just a tremendous landing there, perfectly lined up. Drag chute now tailing off of the back of the orbiter as she comes to a stop. Let's listen in. NASA will congratulate the astronauts here momentarily.
Wheel stop, Houston. Copy, wheel stop. Welcome home, Columbia, and congratulations on a perfect mission.
And you couldn't have stated it any better.
It's great to be up there, and it's good to be back. Thank you.
And there you have it. Congratulations for the 7-member crew. We want to show you this landing again because it was such a pretty sight here at the middle of sunrise here on the Space Coast. Astronauts guided this shuttle in without a hitch. Without a hitch. Right now you can see the landing crews approaching the orbiter, and their first objective right now is to probe the outside of the orbiter, by the way, and make sure that no toxic chemicals, no toxic fumes, that is, are leaking. They're called the sniffers. They're going to go around that orbiter with a fine-tooth comb and make sure everything is in order. The astronauts, they won't be coming off for some 45 minutes or so. They've got a host of post-flight checks that they've got to do right now. So they're going to have their hands full, but eventually, of course, they will deplane, so to speak. Let's show you that replay now. This is the landing just moments ago. All kinds of angles. You saw there first the angle of Commander Jim Halsell, and now, obviously, our angle here on the ground and your angle at home as the Columbia touches down safely on runway 33 at the Kennedy Space Center.
And nose gear touchdown. Columbia's rolling out on runway 33 at the Kennedy Space Center, completing 251 orbits of the Earth while traveling 6.2 million miles. STS-94 completes the Microgravity Science Laboratory mission begun with STS-83 this spring.
One of the longest missions in space shuttle history, and Columbia is, of course, the oldest orbiter in the fleet. This was her 23rd flight, and you might say it was the best of all of her flights. Not a single technical problem to speak of. Just good news for the Space Shuttle Columbia. A happy mood here at the Kennedy Space Center. We're going to talk to the astronauts and hear what they have to say in just a little while when they hold their post-flight news conference, but we expect them to be all smiles. Good news again here at the Kennedy Space Center. And thank you for joining us. I'm Rucks Russell, reporting live. Now back to the studio.
All right, thanks.
Good morning, Cynthia and Greg. Those astronauts have been on a 16-day odyssey that, as you